I wanted to follow up again on some credit questions. I have 58% of the RV market in the country in my district. I have the Silverado and Sierra biggest GM pickup plant, and I need the credit opened up. And I wanted to illustrate a couple of different things. Congressman Donnelly DeFazio and I had an amendment to the car, truck, motorcycle that included RVs on retail floor plan financing. Because part of the problem in retail floor plan financing, and let me deal with the RV, the auto has a similar, is that there were basically three major companies that did it: Textron, GE Capital. They pulled out. You can't sell anything if you can't get it to a dealer. That these are fairly large purchases, particularly for motorhomes, and nobody would take the market. So we tried to get a tranche set. It didn't pass the Senate. It was a House advisory, and that one of the problems here is that in American manufacturing, because of legacy costs, because of health and pension, and our wage rate, we make bigger vehicles. The smaller stuff tends not to be American made, so they require bigger and longer term investments. Let me give you one illustration. In one lot in a major city in the South, they tried to clear their lot of some of the RVs and motorhomes. They sold 8, which was not a good sale day. Of those 8, 2 were in the 350 to 500,000 range. 4 were in the 100 to 250 range, and 2 were used towables under 25,000. All had credit scores, the buyers, of over 700. Only one was actually financed, and it was a $15,000 used towable. The reason is that nobody wants to take a 15-year, $500,000 mortgage right now, partly going back to the mark-to-market question, which I need to point out, assumes that you're going to liquidate the premise underneath it. So the combination of the retail floor financing and the lack of for bigger purchases is hammering the car, auto, truck, RV markets. And unless we can figure out how to get some liquidity into that system, Fleetwood declared bankruptcy this morning. They're going all over the place. It's spilling into manufactured housing, and we try to address a little of the housing with housing credits. But this is a huge double problem, compounded by, and one other thing I wanted to raise to you as you look at how to handle this, that there are buybacks, which the auto companies are starting to get into, but the RV industry, that aren't on their books. They've never had a problem before because when one dealer can't sell it, they move it to another dealer. But if they can't get retail floor planning, all of a sudden this stuff is coming back, out they go. Thousands of people being laid off, when in fact there appears to be some market. How do we open that credit market up if they don't know in the lending institutions what their assets are? That's why we keep bringing up a variation of mark-to-market.
Congressman, thank you. This is a huge issue. It is a huge issue that we have teams of people working on. And this goes back to the new facility under the Consumer and Business Lending Initiative. It's called the TALF program that the Federal Reserve has set up. It's going to start funding in a couple weeks. It's ready now. It's finally launched. That's going to specifically bring down costs of borrowing for auto loans, for credit cards, for student loans, for small business loans. Right now, as a starting point, it's a $200 billion facility. We have a plan to increase it to a $1 trillion facility and to add other asset classes. So we are looking at all different sorts of asset classes to see what else we can put in there to get liquidity to the markets so that people can buy motorhomes and RVs and cars and trucks, et cetera, until we get through this crisis. So I assure you, Congressman, we are focused on this too. We get the same calls you get, not as many as you get because it's your district, but we get the same calls you get. We know it's a real problem, and we think we're on the right track to bring down these borrowing costs, because who can go afford today and buy a car and pay a 14 or 15% loan? No one's going to do it. We need to bring these rates down so that our businesses can continue to do business.
And there needs to be some kind of addressing of this size volume of loan and length of loan question. Some of the RV people had talked to me initially about could they pool but with a fee such that to help share if some went bad. There's got to be some kind of risk sharing on the longer term and sizable loans, or that market will not free up. And those tend to be our American manufacturers, because we're skewed to the higher value ends. And those big areas, construction and auto truck, I believe are close to 50% of much of our American economy. The retail sales, if you take a manufacturing job or value added, which could be software or whatever, is going to circulate at a different rate in a productivity and multiplier effect than a service job or a labor intensive job. And that sector is overwhelmingly tied to construction and auto, and it tends to go boom bust. But the way the financial markets have collapsed so deeply, it's not clear how we get it restarted, especially if the debt that the government's taking on starts to crowd out private borrowing and private equity. They're going to be, and mark-to-market's chewing them up, which was a change. It's not a, when you say it's a problem changing back, it was a change to it that partly triggered this, it's not clear how we reopen the credit market, because capital is going to be so tight.
Well, Congressman, we think the new facility that the Fed has set up is going to help restart not just the market and get rates down, but bring private capital back, because the way it's designed that the private sector puts in capital, the government lends to it, gets the markets going again, and then our hope is, as the credit markets heal themselves, that the private sector will be able to go back, and then the government can step away. So we're focused on this. The only other thing I would add, don't forget, the administration has an auto task force, a whole team of people focused just on the autos to try to get them to a place of long-term viability. And so there's a team working there, Treasury, it's an interagency program looking at autos, looking at auto suppliers, looking at some of their financing constraints as well. So we're coming at it from both directions.